I'm so excited today to have Nick Hoard on the podcast. Nick is a dedicated entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience in advertising and digital marketing. Starting his career in radio ads, he quickly recognized the shift to digital and developed a winning formula for lead generation. He's the founder of two successful agencies, Nick the Marketer, a full-service digital marketing agency that helps small businesses grow through strategies like SEO, Google Ads, mobile-first website design, and social media marketing. And the second is Patient Care Marketing Pros, which focuses on helping urgent care clinics and healthcare practices attract new patients through customized digital strategies. Both agencies are committed to driving growth with innovative, results-driven solutions. Nick, and I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for being on the show.
Dr. Attaway, thank you so much for having me. It's very quickly become friends with you just over what feels like the summer up to this point. So I appreciate you taking some time and meeting with me on this. This is good.
This has been great. We just actually finished recording an episode for your podcast that I'm excited about. I love that conversation. I know this one's going to be fantastic.
I think if you've learned anything from me so far is I like to have a good time. So you don't have to worry about that.
And that's what this is going to be.
Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
I'd love to start with you sharing a little bit of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. How did you get started?
Failure. I went to school at the University of Tennessee, and I went there because my parents wouldn't let me join the military. I wanted to, but they wouldn't let me join the military. And my other option, I was just told I was going to college. And fun fact, I studied studio music and jazz performance. So
wow.
When I say failure, what I mean is no direction and had to feed my family. It's a dead language. I love jazz, don't get me wrong, but it's a dead language. I had no business being in college. You know what I mean? I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that's why I wanted to go in the military. But I got out of school and I had to get to work, and nobody wants to hire a jazz performer. I didn't want to be a teacher, so which is funny because I teach a lot now. But life isn't without a sense of humor, is it? So anyway, I met my wife at the University of Tennessee, so that's a win. Had a blast there, but very quickly realized that she wanted to eat food and sleep in a bed and have covering. So a job was required, not music and aspirations, right? So I had to I wound up in a dead end job. It was a great company. Eddie Bauer is fine, but it's retail. That's not where you go to live your glory days. And I got picked up at Costco. So I went over to Costco at retail, and they gave me my first shot in marketing. Right, I started selling TVs there. I was just selling TVs, but they had this outdoor marketing thing where you would go out, businesses talk to them, market Costco to them, like the perks of doing that. And I'll really never forget the biggest leadership catalyst in that from a story perspective is just my boss saying, "You're so arrogant. You're so arrogant." And I was like, okay. Well, I mean, that's probably true. I had a little bit of bounce in my step, and I was in my 20s and, some attitude and with no direction. Yeah, you're going to come across a way, right? And I was like, okay, I thought that was confidence. And so I asked her, I was like, what's the difference, between arrogance and confidence? So she goes, arrogant people talk a lot. Confident people do a lot. I was like, shut up and get to work then. Okay. So learned that very quickly. And I actually, we talked on the other podcast about when people lay that 10% extra on you, you have a couple of things. You can put it into action or you can get butt hurt and walk away. Right. So I put it into action and got picked up at Coca-Cola and wound up getting a job there in the marketing department. And from there, I got this beautiful letter that I still keep to this day, and I'm not mad about it. So it's just a thing, for your audience, so that they don't get mad at me when I say this. They gave me a letter that said the future of Coca-Cola is for women and people of color, and I did not match either of those descriptions. So that caused me in what I would consider a pretty successful career at Coca-Cola to go, I've peaked here. I'm not what they're looking for anymore.
Yeah.
And so I got into radio, talk radio and Christian radio specifically here in Birmingham, Alabama. And I got really good at advertising and writing ads and selling ads and helping businesses grow. And that was, maybe 2012, 2013, something like that. That's kind of at the cusp where really internet marketing was starting to take off. Now it was already there, but I'm talking about taking off, right? And so everything that I would sell on radio, they would say, hey, listen, do you also build a website, or can you help me get found on Google and that kind of stuff? And I couldn't, to be honest with you. I didn't know how to do it. And there were these agencies that did everything. You've run into those before. And I would refer them over to them, and they would already be my client, and then they would just steal my client. And after about 7 times of that happening, I said, I'm going to learn how to do SEO, and I'm going to learn how to build websites, and I'm going to learn how to do these things. And it wasn't even to help my customers, it was just simply to not lose them anymore. And that, sir, is how Nick the marketer was born.
Wow.
That's how I got here, man. That's how it happened.
You know, in that, I see so much of a teachable spirit. And it was such a contrast to what the feedback that you got earlier in your career, right? So arrogant. But the teachable spirit that you exhibited there is one that a whole lot of people don't have. And what I mean by that is you could have said, well, no, I know how to do radio. I know how to do traditional marketing. And I'm not going to learn all that new stuff. I'm just going to stay with what I know.
Right.
That's what a lot of people have done. Fewer and fewer of them are still around, but that's what a lot of people have done. You said, wait a minute, in order to succeed, I've got to adapt.
Right.
And then you chose to take action.
Now I find myself learning to adapt again with AI and everything else that's coming in here. And, but you're right. I mean, adaptability is huge, and teachability is huge. And I wish I could say I was perfect at it. I'm not. There's all
none of us are.
Where I don't get it, or I don't want it, or I don't want to hear what you have to say. Typically, that's what my wife would tell me. But you're like, I don't think you understand what I'm trying to tell you. You need to be more romantic. That's right. And I'm like, what are you talking about? We just went to McDonald's. I don't understand. No, but we have to find those opportunities where, okay, like this is one of those moments where I can feel something is different and something is changing, and I have an opportunity to grow and change with it. Or I have, honestly, there's the alternative is to stagnate and fall backwards, like, or die. Right. And that's exactly what I think you're talking about is that teachable spirit. Like I said, I'm not always as good as I'd like to be. And I will say this, Dr. Attaway, the closer you are to somebody, the harder it can be to receive their constructive feedback.
Yes.
So
100% true. Feedback is a gift, but sometimes it's one we reject from those closest to us.
Heard a saying one time that I absolutely believe, but also need to overcome sometimes because of what you just said. It's a gift, right? Unasked for advice is criticism, right? That's what I've been told. And I actually believe that. But also at the same time, if somebody cares about you and you know that, we were talking about this earlier, but those positive deposits that people have made into your life open the pathway for you to be able to make that constructive criticism. And that, therefore, asked for or not, it is constructive. Like, you should receive that.
I think it's a posture. It's a choice that you make. Am I going to be the most teachable person today in every environment I'm in, including with those closest to me?
Right.
Or am I not? Am I going to know more than the people around me? You get to choose.
You're right. A lot of it, you check the fruit. There's those positive deposits that the people that care about you make. As quickly as you and I have become friends, at the same time, I don't know you deeply. But I also can go check your website. I can see the 30 years experience. I can see that you've been married for 26 years with 2 daughters. I can see the fruit on your tree. And therefore, even though we haven't built a long lasting, deep relationship, there's something that I can check that says probably need to listen to what he has to say to me. So there's some of that there. It's the overweight dude that's giving you fitness advice that you probably should throw up a wall. You know what I mean?
That's true.
It's the mother-in-law on her 5th marriage that says, maybe you should take my marriage advice, that you probably need to gut check that before you receive that from them. Right. So there's that piece of it too. They could be super close to me, but I don't want what you got. Therefore, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. And so there's a whole spectrum of that feedback that we talk about.
So true. So thinking about the fruit, and I love that metaphor, thinking about the fruit, like when you're looking at your team, right? You're looking at the people that you lead day in and day out. What are some things that you encourage as their leader? What kind of fruit are you looking for? What do you reward when you see it?
Well, I'm very easy to understand on what I'm going to reward. Okay. And it's because I've defined the mission, vision, and values of the company very, very well. So I'll just throw them real quick. Culture trumps everything, win-win partnerships, exceptional client experience, and embrace ownership. So when I see any one of those 4 behaviors being played out internally, externally, with clients, whatever, those are very quick for me to be able to reward a behavior and not just a personality type. You got to be very careful with that, in my opinion. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for those kind of behaviors that I can, publicly praise. But honestly, I want to bring out in the one-on-one sessions when I'm having development time with my team. We do monthly one-to-ones. I want to find out their passions and their purposes, which probably aren't to run a paid ads campaign for our client for the rest of their life. How am I going to speak into you in such a way that when you leave here, that deposit's going to go with you? And so I think about that a lot. I really do. I wish there was a formula for it. There's not. I guess caring enough about other people would probably be the formula, right?
So let's dive into that, because that's something that I've been thinking about lately. Caring for your team. What does that mean to you? What does that look like in the agencies that you run, the teams that you lead? What does it look like for Nick to care for his team?
Man, it's the most biblical thing you'll ever come across in your entire life. Is the golden rule, is to treat others the way you want to be treated, which I also think is the most misinterpreted Bible verse, because Dr. Attaway, I want to treat you in the language that I understand, which may not be the language that you receive in, right?
Yeah.
And so that's the real challenge in leadership, is finding out how they want to be treated and treat them that way. Not just like, I'll give you an example. I personally feel like giving gifts is probably my least. I have to work harder at that. I don't want to speak negative on myself, but I have to work harder on that language of appreciation with my team than any other gift. It's so easy. My love language, or my appreciation language, is physical touch, which is a real challenge with women in the workplace. I can't do that. Right. Right. We'll have fist bump parties. I'll knuckle bump people. I'll high five, but I'm never putting my hand on their shoulder. I never will go in for a hug, those kind of things, but I always want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I also know, like, they're not going to receive that the way I'm trying to give it. You know what I mean? Especially in the world that we live in. So to go back to your question, how do you care for people? Well, you do it the way they need to be cared for. And then a real challenge is to put yourself in their shoes. And that can be, okay. I'm not going to say his name. I have an employee in Atlanta, and I don't know if you realize this, maybe you do. It was in the news, but there was a mass shooting at a school there. 4 students died, a teacher died, and several people were injured. Well, his sister was one of the people that were injured in that classroom.
Oh my goodness.
So when he disappeared in the middle of a meeting on camera, I will tell you, my gut reaction is like, God, how are you going to do that right in the middle of a meeting? Like, we all saw you get up and walk away. Right. But my first interaction with him was, hey man, that was unusual for you. What's up? Are you okay?
Awesome.
Right.
So, awesome. Lead with a question. I love that.
Yeah. So, but I will tell you, what you feel and how you act don't always align. Most of the time they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I love the way you describe talking about, caring for your team the way they want to be cared for.
Mm.
And the only way I know to get there is to listen. I think listening is one of the most underutilized tools in a leader's tool bag. What does that look like for you? Like, are you doing one-on-ones with your team? How do you get into a situation where you can listen and actually hear what it is that's going on, what matters to them, and how you can best care for them?
Well, honestly, I've built a lot into this. It's funny that you asked this question. I wasn't expecting that one. Well, one, yes, listening, but we have a feedback loop, like a genuine feedback loop. Every Friday, an email goes out to our team that Michael, I wish I could tell you it was my idea. Michael, who you've met, he's our VP of operations. He put this together. And it is our weekly report. It goes directly to them individually, and it's built in emojis, because that's like that's how I think. Like,
Nice.
I will see an emoji before I'll get more out of your emoji than I will if you wrote a sentence. Right.
Wow.
So it's literally, how was your week? And it's a set of emojis. Like, you pick the emoji from frowny face to indifference, all the way to fired up, like happy, to headache explosion, like all the emojis you can think of. Not all of them. Okay. A set of emojis that makes sense for the question, right? What was your high? Give me an opportunity. What was your low? What's going on? And then my favorite question that we recently added, and I've gotten more feedback from this than any question, is what one thing, if it improved or changed, would make all the difference in your world?
Oh, so good. I love that question.
I mean, I've gotten more positive interactions from that question. I mean, somebody let me know, like, if you don't hire somebody in this area soon, we're in trouble, right? Well, I didn't know that. I've never asked it that way, and they didn't know to tell me that way. But that was the thing that would make all the difference, because she's overwhelmed and I didn't know it. But it's just having a good, that's weekly. And then on one-to-one, and they know I read it, because if I see it, I'll hit a reply. It'll just go to them. Yeah. And I'll say, hey, listen, I just want you to know, I don't have an answer for you right now, but I see this. Right. So like, I'm letting them know, hey, I got you. Like, and I will, I'm not just saying that, like, we got a plan in action based on their feedback loop. Right. And sometimes it's just like, God tells me this all the time, just no, the answer is no. Right. And it's a complete sentence. So sometimes that's it too. Right. So yeah, those feedback loops are critical, and I've done a lot of reading. I'm open to coaching, like with Josh Nelson. You're now on that leadership, right? And when Josh tells me to do something, I don't come back to him until I've done the thing he's told me to do.
Yeah.
So there's a piece of that as well. And when he says, hey, Nick, you might be seeing some turnover because you don't actually fully understand what your team's going through, then you fix that.
Yeah.
Right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so good. I've been talking a lot lately about how when a team member feels known and seen and heard by their team leader, it will increase retention.
Right.
And conversely, if they don't feel known or seen or heard, your retention is going to go through the roof. Right. And you just illustrated that in such a powerful way. I love the emoji feedback, because that's such a powerful way to leverage a tool that most of the listeners probably have not leveraged.
Right.
How long does it take somebody to fill out this survey at the end of the week? Like,
probably max 2 minutes, because you know what? Just remind me, and I'll send you over a link directly to the survey that goes out.
I would love to see that,
so that you can see it. But yeah, maybe 2 minutes. And this will really get you. We've been doing this for 2 years now, and we have never once had to ask anybody to fill it out, nor have they missed it.
Okay, I hope everybody listening, I hope everybody listening is writing this down, because how often do we send out a request for feedback, a survey, and crickets? Yeah. And you might get 20%, 25%, 30% response rate. You've never had to go chase one. You've never had that.
So
that's remarkable.
Let's follow that. How many times have you sent out a survey and you got it and you didn't respond?
Oh,
so that, I think, is the biggest differentiator. Is receiving feedback and doing nothing with it is probably more painful or more detrimental to your feedback loop than even getting it in the first place. I mean, if you get no information and you're not going to do anything with it anyway, all you've done is send out an email. So I think that's the bigger win on that is just simply like, hey, I see you, or you're right. God, that's such a good phrase for people to hear. Hey, you're right.
Yes.
Like they're like, oh, really? And it's the stupidest thing sometimes. It's stupid in a good way, right? And I don't mean like you're an idiot. I mean like, hey, we need new conference chairs. They're super uncomfortable. I was like, okay, you know, they're super expensive and that's not in the budget right now. And then Izzy on our team, she goes, well, I found these on Facebook Marketplace. They're about $400 each. I bet we could get all of them for all 10 of these chairs for less than $400. And she negotiated the price for all 10 of these chairs for $360. She did that because I responded to her in her feedback loop. Yes. And she was proactive. That's the embrace ownership side, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, that goes. It's like,
I love that.
I can't do that. But if you want to bring something to me, I'm all in. And they're in the office now. We got them now. Picked them up last week.
So good.
Yeah, man.
You delegate not just responsibility to your team, but you also empower them with authority, right? You want them to understand that they own stuff. This is theirs, and their decision is the right one, and you're going to be behind them. And I love that mindset and that attitude. Have you always been like that, or is this something you've grown into?
Man, I've had more teeth kicked out of my face doing stupid things and not listening and being stubborn and you know, arrogant. We talked about that at the beginning of the episode. The only thing that I think that I have going for me is I'm willing to listen and change. No, I haven't always been. None of the rest of it has been that way, but all of it has grown through pain. All of it has grown through loss of employees or loss of relationships, or you know, most of it's just come from pain. Like like every SOP that anybody's ever written has come out of some mistake, right? Same with us.
Yeah, I think sometimes we see failure as the enemy, and I don't think that is true. I think failure is really the price of success if you're teachable,
right?
If you learn from it, and that's exactly what I'm hearing from you today.
It's a really good book that I read called Go for No. Have you ever heard of it?
I have heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's a retail, like I said, Eddie Bauer, right? So I read it forever ago, but I learned if you can pull one good principle out of a book, the book is worth it, right? Like
100%.
You're not going to remember everything. But if you think, I don't know how people always consume your podcast, but if it's video, so if this is failure and this is success, and here I am, like right in the middle of it, where my face is, I'm either going toward failure or toward success. That's how most people think. The thing is to shift it, right? Like you have to go through the failure to the success. There's just no escaping it. There's just no escaping it. You're going to fail, and fail faster, fail bigger, and learn from it is the win. That's the real win.
Yes. That's how you go farther, and that's how you get there faster.
Right. For sure.
So, Nick, let me ask you, you are leading at a different level today than you did 5 years ago.
Yes, correct.
And 5 years from now, your team, your business, your clients are going to need you to lead at a higher level still. How do you stay on top of your game and level up with the leadership skills that your team and your business and your clients are going to need you to have?
That's a funny question. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago. Michael and I have a desk, like we have this T-shaped desk, so we sit right next to each other. And I looked at him, and we've been stagnant as a business. We're finally poking through that. I'm grateful for that, but we've been stagnant around 7 figures now for about 18 months, right? And when you get into a place like that, I'm going to answer your question, I promise. When you get to a place like that, you start looking at what's the problem. And I finally looked over at Michael, and I'm like, I'm the lid. I'm the problem. It's me. What is it, Taylor Swift? Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. So sometimes once you realize that, then you can do something about it. And I started, I got a coaching session with Josh. I went to a leadership summit that was way out of my comfort zone and price range. So great. I'm glad I went, met you there. Right. Just something that was kind of impromptu. So I did that. And I just said, hey, listen, I'm not the smartest person in the room. That's not what I'm getting at, but I am at the top of it in this particular room. And I was like, I got to get into some different rooms and read some different books. And came across one book that I'm sure you'll want to talk about later, but that book's been gut punching me, and I've been just trying to increase my lid. Cause yeah, we hit the wall, and I'm the wall. So in the multitude of counsel, there's wisdom, the Bible says. So I started seeking out people that were further along than me. One of them being my dad, who's retired and out of the game, and just saying, all right, Dad, tell me something about me I don't know. All right, Josh, tell me something about me I don't know. I've got blind spots and I don't know what they are, and I thought I had figured them out, but I haven't. All right, book, tell me something about me I don't know. You know what I mean? Hold the mirror up, right? And I've been receiving a lot lately from counsel and from books, and again, it's that practical application that matters. Knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And that's the radical difference there. So yeah, that's how I'm working on being prepared for the next 5 years. And what's funny about that is it looks a lot like 5 years ago what I had to do to prepare for where we are today. So it's not like it's a big secret. It's just you stop doing the things that work. You know?
It does not matter the field, does it? We see it across so many different fields and industries and disciplines.
Right.
And you know that it's not just going to fix itself. It's not just going to change. You're not going to wake up one day and say, oh, wow, I'm the leader my team needs. I don't know how that happened, but here I am. No, you have to intentionally prepare. You have to intentionally choose. And I love that you're doing that, man.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk about that book. One thing I ask all of the guests is, is there a book that has made a big difference in your journey? One that has really challenged you, or one that you would recommend that every leader listening, hey, if you haven't read this, this is worth putting on your to-read list?
Well, I'm a podcast consumer, and I was listening to Alex Hormozy's podcast, The Game, and he was talking about this book called The Motive by Pat Lencioni. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I was not.
Very much. Yes.
I was not. And I suffered of the 5 good bullet points that he puts out there. There were 2 of them that I was suffering from that were, and are still, but I'm working through them, that were holding me back. And without going into too much detail of the book, essentially it's, why are you wanting to be a leader in the first place? And should you even be leading? Which I think, if I recall correctly, the main character of that book decides, no, I'm not the right person, and I need to step out of leadership, and you need to step in. Right. Yeah. But the motive behind it, if you're suffering in some area of your business, what is your motive behind that anyway? 2 things for me specifically that I'm growing through right now that I got challenged on. One of them is micromanaging. Micromanaging doesn't exist according to this book. It's just managing, right? And if you don't like to micromanage people or be micromanaged, what he is saying is you don't like accountability. And he's not wrong. I don't like accountability, if I'm being honest. I don't. But I've never heard it that way. Like, why don't I want to micromanage people? And I tell people all the time, like, I'm not going to micromanage you. If you can't do the job, well, micromanagement isn't micromanage. It's just managing. Like, there's an expectation that you hired them for that needs to be measured. Well, I've never thought about that way. And a lot of business owners, man, if I'm being honest, we're in this position because we got like unhealthily micromanaged in other roles. So,
right.
I need you to send a daily report of everything that you did, including the times that you breathed. Right. That's what you're used to when you think of it that way. Well, what it was is, did you just do your job, and what was the outcomes? What were the inputs? What were the outcomes, and what needs to improve? And congratulations on the things you did well. It's bad ego, really, is what it is. It's just bad ego, right? And I'm speaking from a place of not healed yet. So, like, literally, this is still gut punching me right now. And the other one this is more of an ashamed thing, but I guess you got to say the thing out loud, right? Is I really struggle giving feedback. And what I mean by that is I'm good at getting it and I'm good at responding to it. But if it's negative, I don't want to deal with it. And so what he talks about, what Pat talks about in this book is if you're delegating the hard feedback, then what's your motivation? Because it's not to do the hard thing and to be a leader. You're in it for the money. And I had to sit back and go, maybe I was just in it for the money. I don't know. I haven't come to that full conclusion yet. But anyway, The Motive, Pat Lencioni, that's a book that's just, smacking me around left and right in the best possible way. And I don't think a book has ever challenged me more than that one. Seriously. And it's so fresh, and I've read so many books, but that's just one that's challenged me personally the most.
I love that. And I so appreciate your transparency there. When I first read that and heard Pat talk about the concepts in that book, I'm with you. It hits you like a gut punch, and you really have to do that deep work internally and begin to ask the right questions.
Right.
Why am I doing this? What is my motivation? And I think that's work that every leader could benefit from. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nick.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I love it. The other one, just a real quick plug, because I read it every single month. Skill with People by Les Giblin. I read it every single month. It's a nothing read. You don't get bloviated with all kinds of stories. It's here's a concept, here's 3 bullet points, next chapter. And I'm going, I can consume that. And I do. I read it every single month just to keep me fresh and just to remember that the sweetest sound to anybody is their own name, and the first person they look at in any picture is their own face. So it just helps me understand and put perspective to put people first.
When you first told me about that book about a month ago, I ordered it, and I've got it over here in my to-read stack because I have not read it. And you said every month, and I was like, wow, this must be amazing. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, it is amazing, and it's so quick to forget. As good as it is, like there's some books that just you read it and it stays on the shelf and you're like, I read that. And I remember the one thing that I took away from it, right? We were just talking about that one book that I read years ago that I took that one failure piece from. But every time I go back to this book, it is a good reminder of, I had that one conversation the other day and I didn't ask them a single thing about themselves, or the whole time I was thinking about how can I get to my question or whatever it is. And it's just a reminder because so quickly our human psyche steps in and says, you're the center of your universe and you're really not.
Wow. So good. Nick, I could talk to you for another hour, and I'm so grateful for your generosity in sharing so freely and transparently from your journey so far. And I know the best is yet to come for you. Because with a posture like you have and the humility that you have, the teachable spirit, and I know the best is yet to come.
Man, I will receive that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean
Appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you.
I know our listeners are going to want to learn more about you, what you do, and stay connected to you. What is the best way for them to do that?
I am building out my platform on LinkedIn. I've been hesitant to go there, but if you go to Nick Hoard on LinkedIn, NickHoard, and find me on LinkedIn and connect with me there, most likely I'll invite you to some of the groups that I'm in, and just that's where you're going to get most of my voice. And if you want to go have a really good time, follow Nick the Marketer on TikTok, because that's where our real personality comes out. If you want to have fun, go there. If you want to talk to me, go to LinkedIn. And we'll chat and we'll connect. I'd love to.
We will have those links in the show notes. Nick, thank you, man. So appreciate the time today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do 2 things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.